So to be honest, I think we are in a bit of a gynormous hype cycle, and you can between AI and GCC, these two words, you should probably ask ChatGPT version 5 which one is running first on the hype cycle. Whether chicken came first or the egg came first, the early adopter does have an advantage. There is a thin line that separates vanity metrics to value metrics at the end of the day, right? And if you're good enough, work will come to you. You're going to be as strong as your weakest link.
What's the most controversial opinion that you hold of the GCC?
Stop calling it a global capability center. It's worth far more. And saying it a global capability center, I think undersells the value proposition that it can actually potentially create. We would like to be the undisputed leader in terms of being able to make the art of impossible possible. So the more people can realize that the 1 + 1 = 3 in them, and they can connect that into an organizational success and industry North Star, to me will be my recipe for success.
Welcome to the latest edition of Zinnov's podcast, GCCs Unfiltered, a podcast where we cut through the noise and get down to what means business. I'm your host, Nitika Goel, Managing Partner and CMO at Zinnov, where we challenge the status quo, one unfiltered conversation at a time. Today, I'm in conversation with Niladri Ray, who has led complex transformations across the financial services and the enterprise tech space. From building AI ML-driven organizations at Broadridge to now scaling Flexera's India Center, he's operated at the intersection of global delivery, deep tech, and of course, leadership development. In this episode, we'll talk about what it takes to build a truly differentiated GCC and whether India's talent story is losing its edge, whether leadership is ready to take the next challenge head on, and what are the blind spots that nobody wants to admit as we traverse through this journey. Thank you, Niladri, for being here. We're very excited to have you be a part of this episode of Zinnov's GCCs Unfiltered.
Thank you, Nitika, and thank you so much for having me here.
Yeah. I'm going to ask you a bunch of questions, and I hope you make them as honest, real, and unfiltered as possible. To start with, we hear the word GCC, or if you open up a paper or a digital paper, you will see the word GCC in every alternate article. Is this a hype or is this something anchored in reality?
That's quite a start question. So to be honest, I think we are in a bit of a gynormous hype cycle, and you can between AI and GCC, these two words, you should probably ask ChatGPT version 5 which one is running first on the hype cycle. So yes, we are on an unprecedented hype cycle on these two, and I think part of it I would say is founded on some real facts. Thomas Friedman in his book The World is Flat 2005 talked about limitless, geoless boundaries in terms of how we operate, and the fact is 1700 plus GCCs and counting.
Absolutely.
AI spends translated to trillions and trillions of dollars and still counting altogether. So there is a fact behind this madness. But separating the facts and the faff is the wall in between, which I think is a chasm everybody is trying to cross and be real. And I believe is something that we should double click on in this conversation.
100%. I know you're a student of history, literature, and things like that. So I'd love to understand your perspective. Do you really think that GCCs are truly autonomous or in the portfolio leadership phase, if you will, of maturity that we often talk about?
So I'm reading these two very fascinating books. And as you know, I love reading, right? So one is called The Economy of Algorithms, which talks about the limitless possibilities of where we will go with AI and the agents thereof. And the other book is a book which is called The Unaccountability Machine by a gentleman called Dan Davies. And it talks about what they call accountability sinks, which means if everything the systems are going to do, we started to have things where we said we want to move from black boxes to white boxes and AI would hopefully take us there. But if decision loops are going to be done by systems and they go wrong in regulatory context and deep context, who takes accountability for the same? And organizations have to design, their operating DNA around it. So there's a gentleman, if I'm not wrong, by the name of Beer Stafford. Yeah, Beer Stafford, he's a Britisher. And somewhere down about 50s or 70s, he wrote this thing about the principles of applied cybernetics, And he talked about a thing called the VSM, or the Viable Systems Model. And he said organizations are like non-human intelligence personas. He created a 5-point model about how a viable systems model looks like. And the 5 points were operations, O for operations, C for coordination, C for control, I for intelligence or adaptive intelligence, and P for policy or culture or identity. And he said everything is baked on these 5, and he said every organization has got personas that overlap these 5. I could be a frontline engineer that is cranking through a very important operational problem and trying to automate it, which means I'm in the O layer. But I could also be participating in a hackathon with somebody else in some other department trying to automate that process tied to an industry problem, in which case I'm part of the A layer, adaptive layer. So he talked about the confluence of organizations being able to find models which allow people to be able to interplay, interoperate, regardless of geography or whatever. And I think that's the double click in terms of what an organizational true model looks like in terms of going to the future.
The layer that you said, each individual or a person will continue to have different roles and personas that they sort of adopt. How much of that is intrinsic and how much of that is taught?
So the one good thing about human beings is, we learn, unlearn every day. And I think, if I'm not wrong, the World Economic Forum has said the topmost skills for the next 5 years is going to be curiosity and I think curiosity and intelligence, something like that it was that order. There's a system of learning and unlearning. And I think it has to be both intrinsic and extrinsic. And this is where I think the network effect comes in, because I just said 1700 plus GCCs. Look at all the AI spends. The data has it from McKinsey that 80% of companies are still not able to show EBIT value for AI, but 20% are able to show. A lot of projects are not moving from pilots to production. So organizations that are able to drum up the muscle in terms of learning intrinsically very quickly and be able to have those sensory receptors to be able to learn from the outside, not repeat past mistakes, learn very quickly, adapt, take it to the next level, are the ones that I think are going to excel.
So I'm then going to ask you another question, Niladri. Is it a first mover's disadvantage then? If you can learn and adapt from somebody else's mistake in an AI first world, can we be at a first mover's disadvantage?
So I don't think so. Personally, I don't think so. You have the adoption curve, you have the early adopters, you have the middle, and you have the
the laggards.
And look, I'm just out. I think last couple of days there's been this note about OpenAI has launched a new consulting business.
Correct. I saw that.
And after the minimum ticket size is 10 million, they've already got contracts. And so now suddenly it's about all the AI that the human in the loop has now become even more important as part of that, right? So whether chicken came first or the egg came first, the early adopter does have an advantage, okay? But I don't think it's an advantage that prohibits anybody else from being able to kind of, come and as the hare and tortoise kind of take the leap, because finally you're as strong as your foundation. And organizations, like I believe in Flexera, we've done some good work to strengthen the foundations. If the foundations are strong, you will be able to fail fast. You will be able to have the levers that kind of, tell you what's working, what's not working. You'll be able to look at a thing which I believe is very important called ways of working on the wow aspect and build organizational muscle that is second to none, which is important in the context of the organization to be able to scale and excel.
You talked about Flexera specifically, right? And you talked about you having a strong foundational layer and you're truly an AI native organization, if you will, right? Do you believe that Flexera's GCC is an execution arm or truly a strategic decision arm or a combination of both?
So we are this top decile PE-backed organization that sits in a very unique spot between all the world's leading technology buyers and technology sellers. And we exist to maximize the value that can be provided from unparalleled visibility into the entire ecosystem of any organization's IT estate. Now, we talk about terms like cloud native, AI native. The reality is the world is still split between on-prem and cloud. There are still critical business processes running on mainframes and mid-range systems, which won't go away in a jiffy. And a lot of companies are trying to bolt on AI on top of it with varying degrees of success, while others are trying to rewire the whole thing. So on the Flexera side of it, from an aspirational point of view, we believe we have the world's best data in terms of, whether you're a technology buyer and you're using different technologies, whether you're sitting on-prem or cloud, SaaS, AI, to be able to look at what exactly is happening under the hood in terms of licenses, utilization, wastage, and optimization opportunities. If you're a technology seller and you're releasing bundles and bundles of software and new software with new pricing, how much of that is really being used and how much is wasted? So we sit at the intersection of these two. And we've been very clear, get-go, right from the board, from our CEO's vision, that we intend to unlock that value because there's unprecedented wastage that is happening. So our CEO was very clear with the vision. We are going with that vision as a North Star. And lo and behold, two communities in the world which traditionally would not talk to each other, which is the traditional ITAM team and the cloud FinOps team, are converging. So I'm talking about quite a few things that align towards the company's strategic objectives and how the GCC is best positioned to be able to maximize that. And I believe we have earned our seat at the table to be able to be a trusted partner for the CEO, for the CEO's leadership team, to be able to do what I call a 1 + 1 = 3. A lot of GCCs extremely good on the 0 to 1, get the capabilities, do it. But once you've done that, your best case scenario is how to do 1 + 1 = 3 is something which I believe we are unlocking slowly. I don't claim that we've done it yet, but we're doing some pretty good stuff.
What kind of thinking muscle do you need to have? What kind of team do you need to have? What kind of belief systems do you need to have to be able to drive this ahead?
Yeah, that's a very deep question. Thanks to the fantastic talent that we have. Two parts. First part is about teaching context. Because at the end of the day, you could be an ace programmer, you could be ace in whatever you do, but until you understand the business context of what needs to be solved for, it's not going to take you much further than that. So people who spend their time over and above their job definitions, whether you're a product person or an engineering person or you're a support person or customer success, you spend time understanding the behavior of what your customers are using or not using and what is pushing the voice of the customer for their customers. People who spend time on that, which is the hard yards, will always be able to have an X factor. That's part one. Part two is about owning outcomes. Finally, GCC or not GCC, finally every business exists for business outcomes. So the ability to kind of catch that a bit early and be able to see how you can make a difference to that outcome globally and how your GCC plays a role in that is very key. So once you can synthesize goals of the organization with delivery outcomes, which basically translate down to the leaf level and every individual knows how they contribute to business outcomes, and hopefully they've aligned with the sales vectors, there's no ambiguity in terms of as you're delivering faster or slower, how are you creating business value or not. And we've spent time, one of our values is keep score, which we kind of drive day in and day out, to know are we really driving value faster or slower across the whole globe, not just India.
Is that a private equity thing, or do you think it's just the DNA of Flexera as a company if you were not PE in?
No, this is a best-in-class framework, and I'll spend some time talking like FinOps has a best-in-class framework. And the point I'm trying to make is there are best-in-class frameworks available. People need to know how to use them and put in the right context. OKRs have been there for quite some time. You don't know how to apply them, and again, while applying them, you will fall. You will fail. That's fine. You get up. The other thing we've been big enough is, and I'm stepping ahead of what we do as GCCs. We drive hackathons globally from India. We just don't say it because one of the things which is part of my mandate is, hey, you may be the head of India, but your success is not just about how India does. Your success is about how the entire operation nicely plays together as a team, and we knock it out of the park.
So Niladri, I think that's a great thing, right? You've had the maturity and your leadership has the maturity, and you also have systems in a sense, right? The other question is managing something which is territorial and control. I did allude to this in the beginning, but how do you, that's just human, right? The loss of control is very intimidating in an environment that's changing so dynamically from a business side. And then the next thing you see, it's easy to see numbers sometimes. When you lose all the people, then the decision making is sort of shifting center. How does a GCC manage that? And a GCC leader manage that?
So to go to that, I have to talk a bit about metrics a bit. We talked about keep score a bit, and there is a thin line that separates vanity metrics to value metrics. At the end of the day, right? And unfortunately, fortunately, with this hypothesis, AI will do everything. Right? Again, when there's a production issue, try to find out,
Which AI do you blame?
is Devin there?
Agent 11, it's you.
Sometimes, that's where the rubber hits the road, right? So to be the central part is about governance. Okay. And again, I go back to the B.R. Stafford thing is what he talked about decentralization, right? Organizations decentralize. But you need to have control loops, because with the control loops, the feedback loops, you will learn, right? And organizations that are vested towards obsessed with customer outcomes will always spend time on, I could be having a successful release, yay. But there are successful companies, sometimes they don't celebrate unless there's a thing called Celebrate Zero, for example. You don't celebrate unless you got a few days run in production, customers have used it, there have been no issues. And even if there has been an issue, an organizational culture that has the engineer try to understand what did I really miss, an outlier scenario, which then your AI model or whatever needs to learn from, closes the feedback loop. So to me, the answer to your question is about ensuring that first there's transparency across the board in terms of reporting. Metrics are as clear and clean. You know where the bottlenecks are, which needs to be unlocked. And there is a mechanism to be able to communicate this. There's a mechanism to have this reviewed, clearly understood.
So Niladri, when you're having global leadership meetings, right, have you ever said, or when a discussion starts with, let's give this to India, how do those conversations land?
So a far younger version of me has done that. And
survived.
Has done that, survived. But, as you grow and mature and you learn that the conversation needs to be slightly different. So in my current avatar, I would not typically walk that path, because this has to be a by-function of, delivery has to speak for itself, right? If you're good enough, work will come to you. At the end of the day, what's the best outcome to be had? And what's the vector that drives that? And in the context of what we've just spoken about, the Flexera GCC has been designed now as a catalyst lever. So we are part of the overall fabric. There are parts that we drive, there are parts where we are driven, there are parts where we relay. But our magic is now in connecting the dots.
You said you are known to connect the dots. That doesn't come intuitively to most. So how does a leader or a GCC in India start building that muscle?
Practice. Malcolm Gladwell, 10,000 hours of practice. Keep doing this over and over again. So the way I would like to answer, this is the practice, right? And we talked about context in the beginning, right? Engineers are 10x productive when they have the tools and the wherewithal and all that, and 100x when they have context. And the hardest part of any organizational thing is to be able to bring that context, customers' context, back down to the teams that actually ship the product. And there are various ways of doing it. Hackathons are one way of doing it. Customer days are other ways of doing it. Customer workshops are other ways of doing it. So organizations that have designed that well enough are able to figure out the dot connection thing, because all the dots are connecting for what? To add final good value. So if you design experiments of fungibility where your teams spend time with each other and they're learning from each other, and you're able to take it all the way down to having customers, or in our case, partners who represent customers, come together, suddenly the portion clicks. We recently had a partner event, a customer partner event. First time we did this from India. Huge success. And I think primarily because, a lot of the demos and the presentations were not presentationware. There were actual people who had built the stuff talking to customers, and they were like, we love it. We want more of it. So again, this has happened through years of, understanding how this works, creating rhythms of it, getting support. We had our global evangelist SMEs who also flew down for this event. Mm-hmm. And this is now a repeat formula where we think, it's not about India, it's not about US anywhere. If you can create that co-location muscle.
Correct.
Okay. And if you can see the full front to back interaction points go, then your customers will say, no, we want more of this. And that's exactly where we are right now.
That's a great perspective. Now, one thing, you've built and scaled teams in Niladri, right? What's the uncomfortable truth about talent readiness? On one hand, we hear there's 1.9 million talent available in India, but on the other hand, we hear that everybody's struggling to get that handful or a handful of really good quality talent. And you seem to love your talent. So what is that magic formula that seems to get it right?
The first one is the talent is already ready. There's a reason why organizations are muscling down on India, as strategic hubs of growth, centers of excellence driving growth, and there's a reason. It's obviously, again, fact-driven. The second bit is, for a long time, there has been this, I would say, partly genuine, partly questionable apprehension about attrition. If you are not good enough, people will leave. Happy teams will make happier customers, and happier customers will invariably result in happier shareholders. It's a very simple math. If you've bet on India, you're riding the Indian tiger. And once you're riding the Indian tiger, you might as well ride the tiger happily. Don't get off the tiger. Because then, you are going to be on a merry ride, because it'll take you through various nuances. There's a reason why we have so many different languages in the country. And to me, the best GC leaders are multilingual, because you got to abstract in the Indian context out here. You got to be able to talk in the voice of the customer. We just talked about talk with the voice of the CEO, the CPO, the CTO, and the voice of all. You are the beacon in terms of the voice of the business in India and vice versa.
So a very important question, again, this is just something that's there on top of my head. Do you think the GCC leaders are ready for the next generation of talent that comes out of the India pipeline?
I think they are ready, right? Now there is a, and you just talked about a lot of case studies where this is good. But there is a bit of a demand-supply asymmetry we have, and it's a bit of like the AI situation, right? So the amount of knowledge, unlearning and relearning that needs to be done now for every new GCC leader or somebody who has exponentially gone up.
Correct.
Because as I said, this is not an easy job. You've got to be sleepless as part of your operative mindset is concerned. Not necessarily sleepless, but you got to think 24/7. You got to think 360.
So what's the one bet Flexera is taking on its India center that would have felt very risky a few years ago?
The one bet I think which is playing out right now is our customer centricity vector. And I'm something very proud about. So we are on course to launch our first customer partner council, which is a variant of our global cabs. So we are about to kind of launch that. I'm hugely proud that we've created the muscle for it. And I think also Flexera is also realizing, and I think most companies also realizing, that decision makers and influencers in various lines of business and users now are sitting within the same time zone in around you. And I've got quite a few stories of some of our leading customer accounts where decision makers are out here, and they are saying we love to work directly with India.
If Flexera India's GCC disappeared today, what would happen to the world of Flexera?
That right now, the leadership head, as we are trying to make Flexera India indistinguishable to the rest of the world. Now, what that also means is whether we are there or not there, the company needs to be able to maximize its outcomes. Now, it's easier said than done. For that to happen, a lot of work has to happen in the background, which we are doing right now all together. And you're going to be as strong as your weakest link. So we are trying to work in such a way that we are able to recognize the weakest links, take appropriate action altogether, but do it in a way that regardless of, whether the India center is there or the XYZ center is there, whatever, we've created enough muscle memory to ensure that an opportunity comes that we will knock it out of the park. And that's where my focus is.
That is, I think, such a beautiful way to look at it. You're constantly, your eyes on the problem, right? Yeah. So that's exactly what we need to be doing. So I'm going to ask you, what's the one decision that you made about your GCC strategy with all your wisdom that you have accrued along the way that you would do differently today?
It's a great question. So, when you're making business cases to executive leadership, you present.
Yeah, it's a sales pitch.
There's also there are three scenarios to present: best case scenario, worst case scenario, and mid case scenario. You make the business cases, you make the ROIs, and you make all this and all. And obviously, if things go wrong, right? But if things go right, and if things go so right that they beat even the top case, what happens next is not modeled or discussed well enough, because that time you get caught in the flywheel. And I have seen this not happen once. It's happened more than once with me. Is what's then happened is as you get caught in the flywheel, you're like, oh my God, I should have modeled this before. Maybe a case 4A or a 4B, right? So you then happen to then run on your feet, think on your feet and model it out correctly. But if you ask me, I would have modeled a 4A, because we've clearly, and we already talked about a few scenarios, that we've clearly gone, and I feel we are probably a few months ahead of where I thought we would be. And in a few cases, a few months behind. But hindsight being perfect 2020 vision, I would have probably modeled my business cases to be a bit more different and a bit more aggressive in terms of chasing growth.
I think that's a lovely way and a good introspection as well, right, to look at. So I'm going to ask you, there's a lot of modeling that you need to do right now based on your own thing. What keeps you up at night?
We have a very passionate executive leadership that has got 200% commitment to excellence. And when you are in a zone where you are cross border, you have to be available in some form or the other, or at least create that. So that itself is one important thing, because we are in this fluid industry where there are opportunities and there are risks, and how do you recalibrate those two? But a seat at the table comes with that cost. So there's no complaining out there. It comes with that. So I have what keeps me awake at night is to be able to ensure that all the good stuff I talked about, that communicating, over communicating, being present when the team needs me, inwards and outwards. Be patient to be able to keep an eye on what's moving the needle, where are customer outcomes driving positives, where are opportunities for us to improve, that I'm able to take that all in and make the right decisions, because we make decisions based on data. So for that, you got to create processes around it. So I go to sleep, always, I measure my week based on, at the end of the week, I've hopefully taught something and I've learned something. So that sleepless part is, if I go to sleep thinking, oh my God, like what did I achieve today? Zilch. What did I teach today? Zilch. What I learned today? Zilch. And if it happens 7 days in a row or 7 nights in a row,
it's a bad week.
It's not a good week. Right? So yeah, so that's how I would answer this question.
I think you're deeply introspective as a person, Niladri. I'm now going to go into a rapid fire section. So I'm going to ask you, what's the most controversial opinion that you hold of the GCC model? It's controversial.
Stop calling it a global capability center. It's worth far more. And saying it a global capability center, I think undersells the value proposition that it can actually potentially create.
Okay. What is the most controversial opinion you have of GCC leaders?
The most controversial opinion, not an opinion, I mean, we talked about this a bit, is there are no free lunches and no pain, no gain.
That's a good way to look at it. If the GCC model didn't exist tomorrow, what would happen to the Indian talent ecosystem?
The Indian talent is, I think, strong enough to be able to find ways and means to be able to prosper and excel. GCC or no GCC. For every GCC to be able to show value, it has to be one better than the last one in the queue. So which means this is now a multiplying vector.
Correct.
The responsibilities and the accountability is just going up. So from my point of view, that is the one thing I would like to say.
Great. So what does unfiltered success look like for your GCC in the next 3 years?
So Flexera is on its path to being the true data-driven leader in transforming how businesses look at their entire real estate of IT end to end and make informed opinions about what to do next, which I think is critical and complex because of the fact that between hybrid, on-prem, cloud, all of this, knowing where spends are, allocating costs and so on and so forth, it's a lot of work, right? And it's what I would call non-differentiating work for most businesses, right? It's something which very few companies can aim to take a crack at. We believe we can and we will. And from my point of view, Flexera is well poised to be, we are already the market leader in all the quadrants that we represent. We would like to be the undisputed leader in terms of being able to make the art of impossible possible.
Okay. What does your unfiltered success look like in the next 3 years?
So I have, I think I have been, I've rewired my thinking a lot into, industry North Stars. So that North Star still exists. But to me, the success would be like, I firmly believe every human being has a secret nerve of excellence. As I said, nobody wants to be average. Everybody wants to be excellent. And I also mentioned you as strong as your weakest link, right? So the more people can realize that the 1 + 1 = 3 in them, and they can connect that into an organizational success and industry North Star, to me will be my recipe for success. So how many we can influence to be able to move them across an adoption curve and say, you know what, this is my story, and resonates with the customer success story and industry success story, the more would be my feeling of pride and happiness in the whole thing.
Great. Thank you so much for this conversation, Niladri. I enjoyed it thoroughly. I think I'm going to pick up the 2 books that you alluded to in the beginning. Thank you so much. It was a pleasure having you on this episode of GCC Unfiltered, and I look forward to having many more interesting conversations.
Thank you so much, Nitika. Lovely talking to you.
Lovely talking to you.
Thank you for tuning in to Zinnov Podcast. You've been listening to our new series, GCCs Unfiltered. Stay tuned for more such interesting episodes. You can listen to our podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts from. To know more about Zinnov, visit our website, www.zinnov.com, or drop us a note at info@zinnov.com.